Today's episode is I've done everything, but I just can't get results. And I'm gonna give you guys the antidote for those excuses. Whether you're the person who finds yourself saying that themselves, or you have a friend or family member that you care about that is constantly saying they've done everything, but they can't see progress, you're gonna wanna stay tuned to this episode. Welcome guys to the Excelsior Health Podcast. This is the podcast for busy professionals who are looking to transform their health. And what we do on this podcast, guys, is we teach you about how to improve your nutrition, how to do strength training, and how to build just ultimately a healthy lifestyle that you guys can sustain. I'm your host, Coach Cory Fernandez, and welcome back, peeps. Definitely, we've been enjoying this summer. We've also been running a business here at Training for Warrior Saga, so sometimes, getting to be able to shoot the podcast can be challenging. But today, we got a good episode, and just inspired by, sometimes I'll be out. My son's in a lot of sports, so oftentimes I'll talk to different parents, whether it's my football parents, whether it's basketball parents, and even this conversation ends up happening with friends and families. And it's just like, when people know you're a fitness coach or a personal trainer, that's one of the first things they feel like they got to do is talk to you about working out and maybe asking you some questions. And then a lot of the time when it comes down to, people say, oh man, I just got this little bit of weight right here, and I've tried this and I've tried that, but nothing works. And I got the inspiration for this episode to kind of go over a couple of those false ideas and just really prove to you maybe why it's not working, and the reality that you're probably not doing everything that it takes to transform your health and see results. So let's go with the first excuse that a lot of people talk about. So first excuse, when I ask that question would be, hey, so have you trained 3 times a week? Do you do strength training consistently? And usually the response is, I move around, I like to play sports, or I go for walks, and sometimes I do some weightlifting in my house, but no, I don't do it consistently. So again, right there, guys, listen, that's not doing everything. If you haven't been able to look in the mirror and say, hey, I've worked out, meaning I've lifted weights following a program, strength training, 3 times a week for an entire year, you are far from doing everything that you possibly can to see results. And again, why is that important? Because if you're just walking is incredible. It's something that could transform your health. And I'm going to talk about on this podcast the benefits of it. But if you're just casually walking, with your dog, or once in a while talking to your spouse, 15 minutes here, 10 minutes there, that's not enough to transform your health. There's benefits of it, but that's not a workout, right? And then on top of that, if you're playing sports, hey, sports is fantastic. It's a way to move. But when you're maybe playing volleyball, there might be an explosive movement that you do, but then you also might be standing around watching. Same goes with softball. Basketball is a little bit more high intensity where you're moving around, but the difference is you're not doing strength training. And for a lot of people, they might be casually playing sports. There's a complete difference to following a program, getting some progressive overload, taking your body through, specific ranges of motion that targets the necessary muscle groups in order to see change, right? So again, what you gotta do is you have to do strength training. You have to lift some heavy weights. You have to lift weights in the ranges of, 3 to 5 reps, 8 to 12, 15 to 20. And a typical good workout for most people is gonna be anywhere from 40 minutes, maybe on the high end, maximize is 90 minutes. But that's step one, is you have to train. There's so many benefits to training that's outside of just physical results of fat loss and toning up. There's the mental health. There's the traits that you built that also cross over to other successful areas of your life, like your career and your relationships. But if you're not someone who's working out 3 times a week consecutively for an entire year, you are far from doing everything you can in your power to see results. And you might say, oh my God, a year, that's extreme. It's not. Trust me, anybody who's transformed their health, that's what they started with. That was the foundational habit. And in other words, that was the gateway habit, is working out, that then opened up the other more important habits to transform their health, like sleep and drinking water and tracking nutrition and so forth. And another point that I'll put is, even when you do get to working out, like the reality is, guys, working out is 10% of your calorie expenditure in a day, right? So someone could do an amazing workout, that's 10%. There's the lifestyle habits, there's the nutrition, there's all these other factors that influence it. So if you're not working out, you're missing a big piece to the puzzle. All right, guys? So let's get training 3 times a week. Maybe the initial goal is not 12 months. Maybe you got to shrink that down to, hey, you know what? I'm going to do 3 times a week for this month. And I'm going to see how I feel. And I promise you, your energy, your happiness, your self-belief will increase. Will your body change a lot in a month? Probably not, to be honest, but you are definitely going to feel better. And then after you achieve that, the next big mark is like, hey, can I do that for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, and then the streak goes on. And one thing I believe is, if someone can consistently do that for 6 months, 9 months, a year, usually what that does, it's such a foundational habit and a part of your routine that now, more importantly, it becomes a part of your identity. Is, I am someone who's healthy and fit. I like to go to the gym. I like to strength train. Therefore, I work out 3 times a week. And I think 3 times a week is a really good amount. I think if you ask most people that are fit, in great shape, I think 4 times a week is the perfect recipe, right? It's really expanding to 4 times a week of training consistently. That's someone who's really, starting to scratch the surface of, hey, I'm willing to do everything it takes to transform my health. Some people might think, hey, oh man, 5, 6, 7 days a week, it's not necessary. Maybe when you're younger, in your 20s, and you got more time, by all means, movement is medicine. But for most of the people that we talk to in this podcast that are approaching their 40s, they're in their 50s, their early 60s, they run businesses, they got careers, they got kids. 4 times a week is a very realistic amount to commit to transforming your health. So number 2, to someone who has said, hey man, I've done everything, I can't seem to get results. The question is okay, so hey, you're tracking your habits and you're tracking your calories, right? And then typically the response is, no, I don't, that's like a little bit too obsessive. Like, I don't weigh my food. I don't track my habits. Like, I just kind of feel it out. Like, I have a pretty good gauge of my food. Right. So again, if you're struggling to lose weight, one of the things you got to understand, this is a calorie input-output problem. It means typically you're not moving enough, but more times it's typically you're taking too much food, energy, beverages, calories, you're taking too much in. Therefore, that's why your weight is staying the same, or it's steadily increasing year after year. So if someone actually sits down and takes the time each day to track how much food that they're eating, their calories, whether that's using an app, whether that's writing in a journal, whether it's scanning certain things, taking pictures, like with technology, there's so many ways you can go about it. You don't have to do it forever, but for a lot of people, they've never spent 3 months tracking. And therefore, they've never developed the skill. And therefore, when they are estimating their food, they're completely off to what the reality is. So this is an example of someone who's taking it into their own hands and saying, hey, I really want to see results. I'm going to weigh my food if I have to. I'm going to track my calories. I'm going to track my habits, which I'm all for calories and weighing food. But I think even before that, for most people, it's tracking your habits. So let me give you an example of that. Tracking a habit would be like, okay, how many grams of protein am I eating each day? Did I do it? So for maybe 130-pound woman who's trying to lose 15 pounds, For her, she's got to track, hey, I got to consume 100 grams of protein. You know, for the guy who's 200 pounds, but he really should be 170, maybe he needs to track his water intake, right? Because he's never paying attention to his water. So those are habits that we're tracking. But the point that I'm trying to say, and this is probably the most frustrating one as a coach, because it's probably the least control that we have as a coach. When someone comes into a training session, we can guarantee that they're gonna move better. We can guarantee that they're gonna get stronger. We could guarantee that they can have an enjoyable workout based on our performance as a coach. But when it comes to nutrition habits, really what we're doing is guiding and educating. And it's on the ownership of the client and the student to, when they leave, it's to take that information and apply it. And that's the biggest frustration, is when you're a coach, is sometimes clients will say, yeah, you know, I'm tracking, but they're not tracking. And if you're not tracking your calories, you're not tracking your macros, you're not tracking your habits, you are not doing everything you can to see results. And I highly, highly, highly recommend, if you want to see change, not only in your weight, but also your body composition, right? Meaning you want more definition, you want to be more toned, tracking your calories, your macros, and your habits, that is going to take you to a whole nother level that you never imagined. All right? So that's number 2 thing that you want to do if you want to stop creating the excuse of, I've done everything, but I'm not seeing any results. Number 3 is, the question is, hey, so how often do you walk every day, and what's your step count total? And then again, the response might be like, you know, when I have a time, sometimes on my lunchtime, I'll go for a walk. There's not a set plan, right? So the way we like to coach it in TFW is, I personally love giving people what we call a second wind workout. It's a workout. It's a walking workout. It's not just casual walking my dog, stopping, you know, like that's fine, but it's a walking workout where for 30 to 45 minutes, you are intentionally moving at a steady pace. It's not a jog, right? We're not sprinting. It's low, steady state cardio. And even more benefit, it's outdoors, you know, whether you're getting some sun, whether it's raining, you're gonna get the benefits of being outside in nature. Even better is if you're in the forest, around plants. There's so many other benefits besides fat loss that come with walking outside. But that programmed every day as a part of your life, you are gonna see how that's gonna help transform not only physically, but also mentally and emotionally, your overall health. Now, when it comes to fat loss, because I know a lot of people, that's the concept of it, walking is amazing. And the reason why walking is amazing, it's not stressful on the body for most people. It can be sometimes for some. And it doesn't have a lot of wear and tear. You know, so when you do a big leg day or you do a big strength training workout, you know, you're tearing the muscles, you're putting a little bit of stress on your nervous system. And then oftentimes, because you're working hard in that session, that spikes your appetite and you have to eat to refuel. Walking is low impact. So someone could be getting extra movements, which means more calories that they're burning throughout the day, by intentionally having that 30 to 45 minute walk consistently. And most people that want to lose weight, they're not walking. You know, we're living a lifestyle that we're working the 9 to 5 or the 9 to 7. And then when we're off break, when we're not working, we're sitting on the couch, we're decompressing, we're watching TV, you know, we're in our cars nonstop. It's the way the world is designed nowadays where, hey, comfort. Like, we don't have to walk to go get, you know, food. We don't have to walk to go here. Everything is comfort, and that comfort is allowing us to gain a lot of weight, right? So another thing that is highly recommended, me, myself, I don't really track this, but I think it's only a positive if you're someone who wants to say, hey, I am doing everything in my power to get my steps in, is give yourself a daily step count total. So a very common one that you'll hear on Instagram, and just pretty much any personal trainer will say, hey, 10K is a really good measure. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty confident that, like, someone who's walking over 8K a day, it's like such a dramatic increase on mortality rate that people that are under 8K, like, man, you have way more risk for chronic diseases and things like that. So one, just for overall health and longevity, that's why you want to be walking. Let's get to the 8K. And then now when you start talking about weight management, things like 10K, 12, 15K, these are very possible things if you have the target and you're intentional about getting second wind workouts in. And that might mean 2 workouts, right? That might mean a morning walk and an evening walk. That might mean a lunchtime. It's not a far-fetched idea if your health is important to you. We are just conditioned, especially in North America and Toronto and the busy cities, that walking outside, it's not normal, right? Where you guys should feel normal that multiple times per day you're outside and walking and getting those steps. All right, so now another question that I'll ask someone is, hey, so tell me about your sleeping habits. Are you typically getting, 7 to 8 hours of sleep consistently? And then usually what the response is, man, I don't have time for sleep. I got kids, I got work. I maybe get 5 hours of sleep. And then again, a follow-up question might be like, hey, when you normally go to bed? I go to bed, I'm a late owl. I like to go to bed around 12, 1. So for example, if that's the excuses you're creating, you're definitely not exhausting all the ways that you can get healthy. Sleep is not a luxury, it's a necessity if you want to have a long, healthy life. Sleep is actually more impactful for fat loss than doing cardio workouts. So those of you guys that are just accepting getting 4 hours of sleep on a routine basis, 5 hours is the norm, you're making it much harder for yourself to lose body fat. You're making it much harder for yourself to recover from those 3 to 4 days of consistent training. You're making it much harder for you to have the energy to go through your day and think critically and make better food choices. A lot of studies have shown that people that are sleep deprived, they typically, go to high processed foods, right? Sugary beverages the next day. So the point is, if you want to exhaust all options, you want to make sleep a focal point. What we teach here at Training for Warriors is, hey, focusing on 6 to 8 hours of sleep. Now, again, 6 hours is not remarkable. I would say that's satisfactory. It's a step in the right direction for where a lot of people are at these days with scrolling on social media, watching Netflix, just tossing and turning in their bed because they're stressed. 6 hours is like the bare minimum that you want to be at. And then the goal is, guys, is by being intentional, by having a game plan, you move to maybe 6.5 hours, you move to 7 hours on average. Now, again, is there a time and a place where you won't get that? Yeah. Maybe you're on vacation, maybe you're at a social gathering, and there might be those moments. I understand that. But what we're talking about is the consistency. 80% of the time, are you someone who can get 7 to 8 hours of sleep because your health is a priority? It's not a hobby to you, right? So if you really want to take control of your health, that's one of the things you want to do is you want to create, what's my sleep routine? Is it I'm going to bed at 11 p.m., which isn't amazing, but so that way I can get up at 7 a.m. That's not bad, right? Is it, hey, I need to be in bed by 9:30 so I could be up by 4:30 because I'm someone who wants to be a 5:30 a.m. morning person to do my work or to get my workout in. The thing that you're gonna find is if you're trying to eat healthy, you're trying to strength train, you're trying to walk, you're trying to be successful in other areas of your life, you gotta manage your sleep. Because eventually it's gonna come back to haunt you, and either you're gonna get worn out, you're gonna get sick, or you're just gonna get really frustrated that you're not seeing maybe the full scale of results that you can based on some of the efforts that you're putting other places. So getting our sleep, 6 to 8 hours, this is a foundational habit that if you wanna look in the mirror and say, hey, I'm doing everything I can to take my health to the next level, this is one that you're not gonna wanna miss out on. Last but not least, kind of referred to it a couple of times, It's that question where it's like, okay, well, how much water are you drinking? And hey, are you consuming lots of alcohol, lots of pop? And again, usually the response is, I don't really like the taste of water. I just like to have, this beverage, that beverage. I have a couple beers here and there. I don't drink that much, just one or two, when in reality, it's probably like 5 to 7, right? So point is, drinking water is going to help you in so many ways. It's going to transfer the nutrients throughout your body. It's going to help you not be dehydrated so you can function. But also, hey, if you drink a lot of water, you're going to be more full. And if you're more full, you're going to consume less calories. All right, so that's one of the reasons that we want you to increase your water intake. Hey, other things that you want to pay attention to is a lot of times people are taking in calories by the beverages they consume. So if we just look at the simple ones, juices and pops, those are usually packed with sugar. And again, they don't fill you up. They're just empty calories that you can have. Let's say the person who chooses to love their Coke, maybe 2 of those Cokes, hey, that could be easily, be somewhere around 500 calories. That's a meal. That's like salmon, rice, broccoli that would fill you up. Instead, you just had that having some pop. So this is a simple way that people can really see progress is they cut out the calorie beverages and they stick to 0-calorie beverages. Does that mean you only have to have water? No, but 80% of the time we want to focus on water because there's so much benefits to it. But hey, that other 20%, what you can focus on is very low calorie beverages. So if you are the pop drinker, a very easy switch is having the pops that are 0 calories. In today's day and age, you got the Coke Zeros, you got the Diet Cokes and things like that. Are they some magical healthy formula? No, but they are better than the sugary, high calorie alternative options. So for someone who's trying to lose weight, highly recommended is just switching to those 0-calorie drinks. So that way you still feel like that sensation is being met, but you're definitely dropping the calories. And then when you add in the movement and exercise, that's the recipe for fat loss. That's the recipe for results. The other one, which is also a tough one, especially as we get into our 40s and 50s, oftentimes, we go to wine, we go to beer, we go to cocktails. Sometimes it's just a social thing that we enjoy, right? And then sometimes it's a stress relief. We get home after a long day, maybe the kids are up there, and it's just that casual drink that helps us unwind. What that can do, though, is that can, again, be 500 calories extra a day. That could be compact on the weekend, an extra 2,000 calories. That's erasing those 3 to 4 workouts. That's erasing some of those second wind walking workouts that you did. So I'm not saying stop drinking, although if you did stop drinking, it's probably one of the best and healthiest choices people can make. However, it's limiting it, tracking your alcohol consumption, limiting it, and saving those calories to real food. Ideally, things like protein, good vegetables and fruits that give you fiber, and also good carbs that you could use for energy to fuel your workouts. But again, this is one of the major points, is someone who's sitting there is like, oh my God, I've tried so many things. They probably haven't tried 30 days of drinking water and 0-calorie beverages, because even just that alone and not really paying attention to the other habits, for most people, they're gonna see significant results when it comes to fat loss. All right, guys, so listen, this episode is just a reminder. Most of the time when we're saying, hey, I've done everything, I feel you haven't done everything. And sometimes as a coach, I get upset when people say that, because I'm like, hey, I'm a coach and I don't do everything. There's things that in seasons where I'm not on top of my game and I'm still pretty good in my health department. So if you do some of these habits, with 75, 80% execution, you're gonna see some amazing progress. And if you really take it up a notch, you're gonna see transformational results. So whether this episode was for you to be reminded to put those excuses to the side, or maybe you gotta share this one to someone you care about, and get them to realize, hey, the power is in the action and the power is in your consistency. Coach Cory, signing out. Beastin'. Ha!